Looks like autumn is here. People got their collections of leaves around. Looks like didn't do much good. There's still a lot of leaves. Who knows? Probably have to be doing this for another 3 weeks or so. Anyway, what's going on in the world? Oh, some real crazy stuff. Some of the more alarming news is like that I guess they beat up and tortured Greta Thunberg, made her crawl and kiss the Israeli flag as the flotilla arrived. I'll talk a little bit more about this flotilla. Anyway, I don't know if that's true, but that's what a lot of people that were on this flotilla are saying, and that they witnessed it. So nobody's heard from Greta Thunberg. So, well, I'll talk a little more about this stuff anyway, about Israel and their machinations and Donald Trump and the peace process. Oh gosh, just too much stuff going on. A lot of things you can comment on. Gee, that must be a huge bag. I wonder who's going to carry that over there. Oh, look at some old clothes. You want some old clothes? Anybody? Or whatever. But look at the size of that bag. Even if it's leaves, who's going to carry that? You think that bag is going to not break when somebody's picking it up? These bags, big bags. Look at, still leaves all over. Ah. Okay, so what's going on here? Emboldened by the success of what they did in Moldova, the EU, mostly the EU, and of course a lot of the, I guess you'd call it the globalist deep state. I don't know, should we, you can say the deep state in America, but apparently there is a globalist deep state, and it includes like members in the WEF and all kinds of echelons of society and big time into EU and the United States. But anyway, emboldened, they are continuing their attempts to overthrow, of course, Serbia. You don't hear so much about that as you should, but it's that's an ongoing process, and I've mentioned it a few times, and of course it gets very violent at times. People get beat up and things like that, not by the police necessarily, but by the protesters beating up the police, but a little bit maybe of the police as well. But these past days, as you know, they had an election, a vote. I think it was for municipalities in Georgia. Oh, 3 o'clock, I didn't mention that. It's October 5th, 2025, and it is Sunday. And that's now 3 o'clock. I can hear the bells ringing over there. Look at this, LGBT bag, purple. Anyway, I like purple. But anyway, it was a municipalities vote, and in Georgia, and luckily the pro-Georgia people, not the EU people, as you know, you have these anti-humanist and pro-deep state, big globalist people on one side. It seems to be that's how it's divided. And then you have people that are for their own sovereignty, I mean politicians for their own sovereignty of their own nation and to be left alone. And the other ones on the other side are paid very well to co-opt their people and their governments to be on the side of the evil. One ring to bind them all, as you know. And of course it includes a lot of these people in the United States, like senators and things. And I am positive too that it's a lot of this stuff is pro-Israel, and Israel might even be very much behind most all of this stuff. Look at somebody, they mowed the lawn here and there was some garbage in there. So Belarus does have some garbage laying around. Like I said, it's a lot of these birds. They come around and they, look at this, a big sinkhole there. These birds, and they start taking everything out of the garbage, looking for some wrappers and all that sort of thing for food. But anyway, one of the people leading this was the former president, and she says, what's her name? Sour Bitchy. No, Sour Bitchvili, that's her name, Sour Bitchvili. And she is mostly a French national. She was born in France. I don't even know if she had to somehow learn Georgian at some point in time, but she was put in in her position as president by the prime minister at the time, which was Saakashvili, back in the old days, back, what is it, maybe 2006 or something like that, long time. And she was sitting over there, and I don't really know what, it's maybe just, it's like the president of Germany that doesn't have much of a role, and of course it's the chancellor of Germany that has the power. You know how different governments work. Sometimes the president, like the United States, and of course there is no prime minister, and the vice president, for the most part, doesn't have much of anything to do in the United States. Vance, I think, in case of a tie in the Senate, he gets to decide the vote. You know, very, very little things to do. He can sleep the rest of his time in there. Anyway, that's how that really is as far as the Constitution is concerned and all that. But anyway, she was one of the main agents, of course, of this attempted overthrow. She came out, and she came out with some children, and she was saying that this is like a false flag, and that the government, the government was trying to overthrow itself. That's what she was saying. Yeah, that I really buy into that, you know. And she closed her speech by saying that she is the rightful president of Georgia at this time right now. And of course, she never won any vote. It was Saakashvili back in those days that assigned her to be the president. A long time ago. I don't know, decades ago. And she still wants to hang on to that and wants to have a lot of control. She was the one that was undermining it in that last election where the pro-EU people lost. And of course, as you all know, they had EU parliamentarians and things there, you know, trying to sway the people. And it was a paid for a protest, just like this one is now, just like it is in Serbia. It's really terrible. I've already talked so much about this stuff anyway. Nevertheless, in that vote, the pro-independent, the pro-sovereignty, pro-Georgia, independent people, they got 70% of the vote. So I guess that's probably why she started making up those lies, because it didn't work very well. You know, it's not like in Moldova. Moldova, they put a lot of money into it, because Moldova, apparently, they're trying to turn that also into an arm of the anti-Russia. It doesn't even border Russia. But as you know, there is some designs, like I've said, and other people have possibly mentioned this, so you have to pay attention to this, that Transnistria, it's kind of a in limbo place. It's connected between Moldova and Ukraine, and they're pro-Russian people. The people there are generally pro-Russian. They have a big Soviet ammunition depot there, and there's Russian soldiers there, by the way. It's a very tender situation there, and Moldova went to war trying to, you know, with that area, and they didn't defeat them, so that's why they're kind of in a limbo. They're on their own, and of course they want them back, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff to piss those people off, and you know, not a good way to win their hearts and minds, of course, but that's what Moldova does. And you know, there's a movement, and I don't outright find it that bad, you know, like where I think even Maya Sandu talks about maybe making Moldova a part of Romania, and I believe it was in the distant past, and I think it was Stalin that separated the two. You know, Stalin went in and started carving everything up there a little bit, changing borders, creating new countries and things. He did a lot of that kind of stuff. Lenin did that sort of a deal too, and a lot of these people, as you know, the leaders of the Soviet Union, Lenin was kind of a mix. He was part Russian and lots, I think, some other so-called ethnicities or nationalities or whatever, and he was an agent of Germany. He was living in Switzerland before the revolution, and they, as I have said before, they shipped him over there in a sealed train car, not even the windows, you couldn't look out or nothing like that. Sent him there to start the revolution, the Bolshevik revolution, and basically overthrew the Tsar in 1917, and established a real things that are different. You know, you weren't even allowed to be married, and your children didn't belong to you, they belonged to the states. To the state, not the states, the state. And marriage was outlawed, I said, and kind of crazy stuff. Maybe like some of the hippies would have liked in the 60s, something like that, you know, free for all, sort of love the one you're with, you know, something like that. Cat coming here. You didn't see me. And but anyway, that was I guess that's who gave the Donbass to the region, that the Russian region called Ukraine. He handed the Donbass over to that region, and he was given maybe some other areas, and Stalin gave areas to Ukraine, and what's his name? Anyway, these various leaders, and a lot of them were Ukrainian, and of course that doesn't give Ukraine any grounds to say, oh, they were against us. They were against us the whole time. They only built us all these power plants and gave us lots of industries and attached a whole bunch of, most of our territory was attached by the Soviet Union to us, and that's why we hate the Soviet Union, because we would otherwise just be some little racist, tiny little municipality, but instead they made us a big, powerful group of racists, and with huge amounts of territory of other nationalities and people that don't even speak Ukrainian, so they're our enemies. No, anyway, they're just a bunch of crybabies, at least the government over there and all the Banderites. I don't think the regular Ukrainians are necessarily like that. A lot of them, of course, they wouldn't know the history because their history has been taken from them. The real history is ripped away, and they supplanted a different history, like that they built the pyramids of Egypt, as you know, and the Ukrainians also dug the Black Sea with their bare hands. The entire Black Sea, the ancient Ukrainians, which even though they weren't even anywhere close to the Black Sea, the area that was called Ukraine, and of course it got the name Ukraine, which is a Russian name, basically, meaning on the edge, meant on the edge of the Russian Empire. So that was the further part of the Russian Empire. And of course, that was the first capital of the Russian Empire. And the first people that were called Russians were the people under the government of Kiev. Those people were known as Russians. So, in case you don't know, because that was the first capital. And of course, the capital moved, I think it was to where was it first? Novorossiysk? Anyway, it's moved a few times until it was settled on Moscow, and Moscow, of course, ballooned and blossomed and all that. And I don't know. You'd think that the Ukrainians would say, we are Russia, and you are not. You have to name yourself something else. But that's not the case, apparently. I always think this building looks weird. It looks like it would be on a big oil tanker. It looks like, you know, the control portion of it. Look at, here's a Soviet design if you want to see one. Okay. Anyways, sour bitchy. It didn't work too well for her. Hasn't really yet. So it looks like, I don't know. It's amazing how they can do this. It looks like in Russia, as you know, I think I was saying like a billion, but I mean a million. And no, I'm not exactly sure how many Moldovans, it's a small country, as you know, how many Moldovans there are in Russia. Maybe it's comparable to the same that's in all of the rest of Europe. But of course, my Sandu made sure that she would win that election. She said if she didn't win the election, she would annul the election. I'm just talking a little bit of what happened in the past couple of weeks here. And just like they did in Romania, remember? The wrong party won. That's democracy. So they canceled the election, and then they banned the guy. They banned the guy that won for the next one coming up. You know, that was in January. And she would have done the same thing. And she, as a matter of fact, she did on the day of the election. I guess she banned one of the parties. So she was banning anybody that could possibly, threaten her. And nevertheless, I guess the opposition combined, they got more votes than she did. So she's not very well liked at all, and the people, of course, would rather be friends with Russia than they would with the European Union. But when you run the state and you run the police, all that, there's not that much other people can do. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to go pass out a bunch of guns and stuff like that? And if you see how that works, the people that really do have the majority, they don't get violent and go do that. So you have this small majority, or a minority, what do you call it, maybe less than 30% in Georgia, and yet they're a violent bunch of people, and they get violent and start fires. There's a lot of violence what they were doing there. They were, burning fires. They crashed down the barriers and defacing the government buildings, and they were really trying to. It was a staged overthrow. They were trying to overthrow the government in Georgia in this past day, just from the municipal elections. Somebody lost a red scarf over here. I wonder why would there? I guess maybe somebody put it out of the way to make sure that it. I'm just curious to see what it is. I'm like a cat. That's why I like cats, I guess, because they're curious too. It's not a scarf. Some kind of rag or something. Anyway, but I was already talking about Saakashvili. By the way, he was a pure puppet of the United States anyway. And remember that back in 2008 when the Olympics were going on, he he tried to take over South Ossetia, he even had drone tanks from Israel. They were drones. There were people not in it. Somebody was sitting in some office somewhere and steering these tanks around, and they killed a lot of people. I think in one day, like 3,000 people. They were machine gunning through the windows in South Ossetia, and when people went into their basements to get away from getting killed from the machine gun, they threw grenades in the basements. And a lot of those people, most of them people had Russian passports, so that was the whole deal there, and trying to kill a lot of people. And then Russia I think it took 3 days for them to, get a lot of people and soldiers riding on the top of tanks and all that. And then that's when they realized their military needed a real overhaul. But they still defeated them anyway. It was I don't know how many days that took, but that's a strange thing. And the present government of Georgia has figured out through intelligence that most of this protest was engineered through the European Union ambassador to Georgia. So, and they said that he's going to be punished. Those that are doing this will be punished. There will be consequences, apparently. Viktor Orban, he put out like a day or two ago that the reason why the EU pulls in migrants and tries to flood them into Europe, even though they deny it, they deny it for the people, to fool everybody, obviously. But anyway, it's because of demographics, and they see that these migrants, they have more children, and they are afraid that, that taxpayers and things like that will fade out or whatever, because they want to keep getting this money, and they feel these people are going to be working, but it makes you wonder if a lot of these people go on welfare things, but of course governments, a lot of times, they have a way to force people into working. So, but of course initially they put them all on benefits, and those that are working have to work more and pay more taxes in order to pay for those benefits for those migrants, as you all know that. But anyway, but it makes you wonder if this clashes. Of course, it's like, I don't know, it's like Soros and Billy Gates and a lot of these other people, they want to reduce the world's population, but I guess that's why they're having wars. Maybe they want these people to flood into Europe and to put them into uniforms and things like that. I guess that's why Germany is now heavily thinking to again start forced conscription. So it was the case when I was in Germany. So, but a lot of people, you could say, oh, my back hurts or something. I don't know. Let's see. And in spite of, there's a policeman over there, in spite of all of the things going on in Serbia, they opened up this Hungary-Serbia landmark fast rail speed train. So that's pretty amazing, between obviously Hungary and Serbia. So, and he's Vucic is acting like nothing's really happening, so he's letting them all just keep on protesting and all that. I've been in countries like that too, with their protests, and the leaders just act, so let's let them do it, let them keep going. And then, of course, even when they get violent and all that, and I guess that's the whole deal. And I think that's what Lukashenko was originally doing, but then they started getting more violent. That was back in 2020 here in Belarus. They started getting more violent here, and you know, and of course that was a big EU thing. It was far more important to overthrow Belarus back then than it was to overthrow Ukraine. It's amazing that Lukashenko was able to stop it. But you know, it had consequences too. They had to get really tough. Back then you saw Lukashenko going around with a rifle and all that himself. And at one time, I know in one city, the protesters, they ran over it and killed a policeman. And of course the police did not like that at all. So the police got a lot more heavy-handed. And but it was an attempted overthrow. It's an undeniable fact. Europe has even admitted that. Victoria Nuland has admitted that. So, and some of these people here are still brainwashed, and they don't think so. I don't know. Terrible, terrible how this stuff works out, and people get brainwashed very easily. What am I to say? Okay. Okay, Trump. Let's go now talk a little bit about Gaza. You know, he's got his peace plan sort of a deal coming out, and he said now he's going to rebuild Israel's terrible image. I don't know if he means Netanyahu's terrible image, because I don't, maybe a little bit of the IDF. It's mostly, of course, Netanyahu, and I don't know if Netanyahu ordered him to do that, because you know, as you guys all know, you know, Trump acts like he's the big boss, but Netanyahu, you know, I think it was Max Blumenthal, so many people, it's a very well-known fact, and Trump probably knows this himself. Netanyahu has got him by the balls, I guess is what you say. So Netanyahu controls Donald Trump in the Middle East, undeniably. That's an undeniable fact. Netanyahu always gets what he wants. And the reason why that is because Netanyahu, he owns the United States government. He owns Congress. He owns the Senate. He owns the House of Representatives. He owns lots of people. He owns even a lot of people in state governments all around. I don't know. I think they look at people. They have people, and they look for promising types of people, and then they further their career. They help them. They give them money. It's just absolutely incredible if you know how deep that goes. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'm wondering if somebody's ever going to be a whistleblower and put out a book about that. You know, we have things put out by spies. Like I told you, By Way of Deception is one book, and then there's another book, and it's not even they're not even whistleblowers, but they just talk about how Israel manipulates a lot of things, and they even admit by the end of the book. I told you about that book. It's called Every Spy a Prince. And by the end of that, they're bragging about how they got, one of their biggest accomplishments was to get Christians and Muslims to fight and kill each other. And obviously, they've already said themselves that the best way to defeat your enemies is to get them to fight and kill each other. And then you just sit back and maybe you wait to see them exhaust themselves, and then you move in and take the spoils. Yes, probably. Makes you wonder if they're going to try to, well, and maybe they do that already in Russia, but you know, Christians and Muslims get along in Russia. They are very good friends. And I've already said in other videos that it is a Muslim, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the German word, Weisheit, wisdom. It is Muslim wisdom, and I'm not sure where this is written. I'm not sure if it's in the Quran even. It might even be. It might be in the Haditha, which is you know, the record that people like scribes, I guess, took of Muhammad's life. But what it says is that Jews are your friends. You know, this is for Muslims. Jews are your friends. Christians are your friends. But when Jews and Christians are friends, those are your enemies. And I guess that goes along with the fact that, and I don't believe in it 100%, because you can look at some people like Max Blumenthal, and there are a number of them that are much different, than what people think traditionally, that Jews hate Jesus. And a lot of those, there's the Zionists, and there is a lot of Jews that are not even Zionists that hate Jesus. And they say that if Jesus ever showed his face on the face of the earth again, they would kill him again. And if you're a Christian, I guess you're supposed to have a high honor for Jesus. And I don't even really know where I fit in. I've already said this in a lot of videos, because I really, Jesus is, to me, is just like what Muhammad said, that Jesus is the greatest being that walked the earth. And of course, Christians, maybe that's why they hate the Muslims, is because Muhammad believed that Jesus was the greatest. Doesn't make sense to me, but I don't know, that's, how things, the love-hate relationship, I don't know, maybe that's what it's all about. But anyway, it's a crazy world, so no more to be said about that. Let's keep going on to this stuff. Where was I at here? Okay, well, when Donald Trump called his peace plan, it's not like Zelensky's piss plan. Zelensky had a piss plan, back then, which basically was a war plan. But anyway, Donald Trump's actually probably is a peace plan. You never know what the heck is in Donald Trump's head. He would probably rather have peace, and part of his peace plan was a Palestinian state. And I'll just put that in right now. I was going to say it later. And when it was floated to all these countries all over the world and all that, and everybody said, oh yeah, that sounds like a great peace plan. Yeah, let's go for that. And there's no annexations of Gaza or the West Bank. And, Gaza is to give up all the hostages and, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, but everybody liked this peace plan. And after, Hamas took a little bit longer to look at it, and then they said, okay, they agree with it as well. Supposedly Israel is supposed to agree with it. But then after everybody read it, then Israel, of course, put in their amendments. And the Hezbollah leader, he even mentioned that. I guess he mentioned that in a video. They put in their amendments. And one of the amendments was no Palestinian state. So, after everybody said, oh, this sounds great, let's go for it, and then Israel kind of, a couple of small amendments, just a little one. No Palestinian state, and of course maybe some other things. I'm not even sure about it. So everybody thinks they're in favor of it, but they don't know that it's already been pretty much quashed out, all of the main parts. That's how Israel works. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. You got to hand it to Israel. Talk about some sneaky, dastardly people, and that's kind of like if you've read The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, and you have Shylock in there, and he's a kind of a sneaky guy, and he kind of put in there at the very end when he was who was the guy that he was dealing with? I can't remember his name, but anyway, about loaning him, money. He's got this great cargo coming. And then a storm, of course, destroyed his ships, so he had no money. But anyway, in the meantime, he got a loan from Shylock, and Shylock threw in there, yeah, and if you don't pay me, I get a pound of flesh, and whatever else, And they, yeah, and so anyway, his ships got destroyed, and then he was insisting on his pound of flesh. So he wanted a pound of flesh carved out of whoever that merchant was, and he was insisting on that. So anyway, kind of a sneaky little detail put in there at the very last minute. That's kind of what it was all about. And that's one reason why, like, a lot of Jews have a bad bad reputation. And Shylock, of course, he wasn't a Zionist. So like I said, but it's not like all Jews are like that. Most Jews, I've dealt with Jewish merchants and Jewish people like that. They're decent business people. You give them some kind of money and they give you a product. Price was not bad, it was fair, all that sort of thing. I had no problem. So, but I guess there's some. I did a painting. I painted somebody's house. I mentioned it, I think, in another video. And the lady was Jewish. They were Jewish doctors, or her husband was a doctor. She was like a housewife or something like that. And so, and I kind of had this feeling about her anyway. So she wanted a guarantee, so I signed this guarantee, but I made sure that I wrote it, and I said she wanted the trim, which was very strange, and her trim was a little bit better than the rest of her house, but she didn't want the house painted, she just wanted the trim painted. So, you know, which it was less money, you know, and it all came clear afterwards. Get this, this is really incredible. It became clear afterwards. So I signed this guarantee, and it was for the trim, and I made sure it was written on there, the trim of the house. I made it, it's in the contract. And this was, gosh, before I went into the Army. Get this is incredible. So I signed this thing, and I guess she signed it as well. And then she called me after I had already done my first enlistment, 3.5 years in the Army, and I think it was even a year before I went in the Army. So here it is, 4 years later, and I can't remember. I think I guaranteed the house that it won't be peeling or anything like that. I think it was for 5 years. So she calls me like 1 year, I guess, before the contract, or maybe months before the contract was up, and she said she wanted me to come back and paint her entire house because it was peeling. And that it was, luckily I knew this on the phone, and I remembered this, and I just said, I just did the trim of your house, and she was like, oh okay. Because it was far away. It was an area. It was on an island, believe it or not, in Lake or in Puget Sound or whatever. Anyway, Mercer Island, and I didn't want to go all the way there. You got to, go over a bridge, and it's for super rich people that live on that island. So rich property, and they were rich. They were rich, obviously, and here, little old me, I'm supposed to repaint their whole house because she tried to trick me. So anyway, but that's and I'm not against Jews, seriously, but there are just some. There are some bad Christians, there are some bad Muslims. It's all over the place. You guys all know that. So you don't get your opinions by that. And it's like, it'd be like Donald Trump saying, like, what was it? Oh, tender lady, take me in. What is it, a snake or whatever Donald Trump was saying? It's a little bit drizzly, so I think it's going to start raining a little more. So maybe I should hide out. It's like somebody pissing here probably at one point. It's perfect. Look at this. Great place. Here's some drunk guy coming from some bars or something like that. Nice corner there. Psst. Anyway, so his peace plan. So Israel snuck in this stuff. Let's see. And by the way, they kept bombing. Even after. They kept bombing Israel. I mean, they kept bombing Gaza. First right away, just like I think an hour afterwards, they did severe bombing in there. And then, as everybody knew, the Palestinians and all the Israelis knew, and then of course they withdrew their military vehicles, meaning tanks and everything, from let me see what it's called, the Al Nasser neighborhood. This is in the northern part of Gaza, and some Gazans returned home, to the rubble, of course, and where Israel pulled out, and then they bombed them. Israel bombed these people. Jeez. Of course, there's not going to be any mention of that in the press. So they bombed these people after they pulled out, and the people went back to their own homes. Gee, what a bunch of nice people. It makes you wonder, well, what in the friggin' crap is the sense of that? What is that? Oh, was there bombing Hamas, people returning to their homes? It's really terrible. You don't even want to think about how these people are such, I don't even know. It's like, I don't know. It's not even, it's beyond hatred. It's like we are superior and you are cockroaches, and you're going to infest this place and we're going to kill you. You're going to infest your own land that you're supposed to get back. Well, I guess what? The whole program is not going to be, they're not going to get their land back. It's, do you think Netanyahu's going to give this up? You think this hundreds of years, Donald Trump says, what, 3,000 years of Eretz Israel. Do you think that Netanyahu is going to just walk away from that, after Donald Trump makes up some little thing like this, and Donald Trump, it's the whole thing is to get Donald Trump his peace his what do you call it, his peace prize. This is some real nasty crap. Anyway, you guys all know that. Greater Israel. Let's see. Oh, it's also been disclosed that the UK, they've been helping Gaza, Israel this whole time, bombing Gaza, not by satellites. Now, the United States, as you all know, they give, not only they have spy planes, that have high definition, they can read probably this right here, this paper I'm looking at, from a satellite, maybe not on such a cloudy day. But anyway, they can read that. And of course, there's, Britain has some great spy planes as well. So they are giving all this information to the Israelis about Gaza. And the United States does it, via satellite and by spy planes. And a lot of these spy planes are spotted all the time. And when they don't turn their transponders off, most of the time they don't. So you see them doing these circles in certain areas, the American ones. And I guess you can find that online, where their flight paths are. It's really strange sometimes in some areas. So anyway, the UK has been helping them out. And the Haaretz newspaper, wow, they put out, Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper. Well, it's not a newspaper anymore, probably. Maybe they do have papers, I don't know, but it's a channel then. Haaretz media outlet. They put out, this is a quote: Trump must finally acknowledge nothing about Netanyahu is in good faith. Wow. In other words, don't trust this guy. Obviously, I just said that. You know that. There's no way that Netanyahu is ever going to obey. Donald Trump, it's not like he's stupid, but he's got, he's got him by the Michael Jackson, he's got him, he's got him by the balls. Netanyahu, he runs the show. The most influential person on planet Earth is probably Netanyahu. Netanyahu's a happy man, you think about it. He's devilish like that. He's Satan. He's a Satan-Yahu. This guy is really satanic. Is it absolutely unbelievable? And this guy, he revels in blood, probably. And he talks about, they said that the Jews were drinking Christian women or girls' blood or something like that. Well, maybe Netanyahu does. I wouldn't put it past that guy, to be honest with you. But he makes it as a joke. And see how they lie about us. And he finds ridiculous stuff. And we what he said, we changed the something about the moon, rotation of the moon or whatever. Yeah, we didn't kill Charlie Kirk. I don't know. It's just like, and then nobody really says, nobody's got any smoking gun evidence that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. But who has the very, very strongest motive to kill Charlie Kirk? And who has the ability to kill Charlie Kirk? And especially as we're looking at all the evidence and knowing the fact that this Tyler Robinson, there's practically nothing that puts it that he did it. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. And it makes you, you look at the evidence and look at this guy and all, and it's like who could possibly say that this guy actually killed Charlie Kirk? And if they do him in because of it, you may not like this, Tyler Robinson. I don't know nothing about this guy. Maybe he's not a guy I would like, but I don't think I would dislike this guy so much either. He can go around and have his transitioning or whatever, boy, girlfriend, whatever the heck it is, all as much as he wants. But the fact is, I don't think he killed this guy. He won't confess to it. And I don't think his father even said that he confessed to it. So this is all nothing but a setup. Who knows? Is more of this going to come out or not? I don't know. So anyway, Haaretz said, don't trust Satan Yahoo. That's an Israeli publication, by the way. So, fun fact, not so fun after all. But did you know that before the conflict, Israel, they were holding 5,000 Palestinian hostages, and now they hold 13,000 Palestinian hostages. And I say hostages is because a lot of these are women and children. Some of these are little boys, like 7, 8 years old. You know, maybe they threw a rock at a tank or who knows what all, you know. And a lot of these people, they lost their dad, they lost their brothers, you know, were killed by the Israelis, or maybe are imprisoned, or who knows what. You never know what the heck. Or maybe their mother was shot. You know that the Israelis, what they like to do, they said what is the most honorable thing, well, one of the most honorable things, is to shoot a pregnant woman through the womb, you know. And they said 1 bullet, 2 kills. And that's an honest to God truth. They do say that. They certainly do. That's an undeniable fact. They even make t-shirts like that. 1 shot, 2 kills. You know. But no, they're not disgusting. They're God's chosen people. That's what God's chosen people does. Don't you guys know that? Man, terrible stuff. Maybe I should go walk down over this way again. I've been here before. Some dog. No, he'll stop anyway. So, and this whole thing started, you know, this October 7th, which of course, a lot of that is a big lie anyway. And there's just so much information about that. And Max Blumenthal, he did a really good, well, a lot of, I think he even made a documentary about that. But he talked about what really happened on there. And of course it was mostly all Israel that did that stuff. Most all the dead people that died, they were killed by the IDF. They were killed by Israel. As a matter of fact, as I've said in other videos, there were IDF soldiers that testified in court that they were told to kill them. So, and this was called the Hannibal Directive. If there was any sort of danger or thought, or it was apparent that any Israelis would become hostages of Hamas, they were told to kill them, to kill the Israelis. So that's the Hannibal Directive. And everybody seems to be forgetting that. Everybody, they talk about, oh, the brutality of Hamas. Look, they killed, I don't know what they say. Whether they say 1,200 people. I think altogether like 300 people were killed, not 1,200. And there was no rapes. As Roger Waters was saying on Piers Morgan, that there is no evidence. There's no evidence or anything that there was any rapes. I mean, who is going to have time to rape somebody, you know, when you're getting shot at and you have Apache helicopters that are burning, that are shooting fire at you? Are you going to stop and rape somebody or something? You're supposed to be, actually what Hamas was trying to do is get hostages, get prisoners to exchange for Palestinian hostages, because Israel had a lot. That's still a lot. That's 5,000. They had 5,000 there. Some of them living under terrible conditions. A lot of time, even the men are raped with like broom handles and who knows what, baseball bats. It's really horrible. I don't know what they did with Greta Thunberg. Apparently she was tortured, and I doubt if she was. I don't know. I don't think anybody has heard from Greta Thunberg. I don't think anybody has heard from her since they stopped this flotilla. I don't know. So who knows if this stuff is true? That she was made to crawl up and kiss the Israeli flag? I don't know. I don't think Greta Thunberg would do that. I would hope she wouldn't do that. And I remember other flotillas, you know, where they had, what was this guy, Ken O'Keefe, not James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe was the Project Veritas, but Ken O'Keefe, he was a anti-war protester back in the old days. He was one of the ones, I think, that was a shield over Iraq to stop the United States, or hopefully stop the United States from bombing Iraq. Anyway, I think they arrested him then too. But anyway, he was on one of these flotillas, and they beat him, and you know, blood all over his face and on his head, because they were beating him on the head and all that sort of thing. So he was full of blood back in those times. And I think some of those pictures is what gave him a lot more notoriety. I think he is actually Palestinian now. He took on Palestinian citizenship. I don't even know what happened to him since that time. They might have even paid him off, to be honest with you. Huge sum of money to stop him. Or he's dead. I don't know. Strange. You never know what happens to a lot of people. They just fade away. Okay. Okay, another fun fact. The UK has arrested over 12,300 people arrested for online posts. And a lot of these people are serving years in prison for liking something, liking a post. You put the like button. You know, just think when you make the post how bad that is going to be. And so 12,300 people arrested for that. And that is more than Russia, Belarus, China, and Iran combined. I guess that's freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Don't you guys know that? Freedom of opinion. That's what we stand for in the West. Don't you know that? Jeez. So that is freedom. Oh no, that's some hate speech. Oh, if it gets to be hate speech, you know, what is hate speech? Hate speech is pressing a like button or something. Press the thumbs up. Oh boy, that's hate speech, baby. Yeah. And the president of Colombia, he has put out, you know, he did not go to this General Assembly. I don't know if when I put it out, I don't know if I made that clear. I mentioned, I think, what he said. But he said there's no point in going. So, no, that was of El Salvador, I guess. He didn't go. But anyway, he said there's no point in going, and he said, like, look at the free country of the United States. You're not even free to walk the streets. You know, you might get raped or who knows what, beat up, robbed, and all that. So, but anyway, the president of Colombia, he put out, you know that Ukraine is very angry from hearing this, that Israel is very angry, and maybe some of the people in the government of the United States would be very angry about this. He put out, I think in this General Assembly, he said, there is no superior race, no chosen people of God, neither the U.S. nor Israel. The chosen people of God is all humanity. Damn him anyway. We got to get him. We got to knock this guy off. I remember Colombia, the president, or I don't know, the last president, I guess he got some award from George Bush or something, the highest medal or whatever. It makes you wonder, you know, just some election, you know, when it actually does work, it's incredible. You know, you thought that they would ensure that Colombia would also be entirely and perpetually on this dark side. Grab them by one ring to bind them all. Let's see. Okay. The former UK Defense Secretary Ben Wallace, he said to a large crowd in Warsaw a few days ago that the UK must choke the life out of Crimea. You know, it's really strange, you know, that I don't really understand. You know, the UK is way over there, and they have had a fascination and they've wanted the Crimea, UK. Now, I understand the U.S. Now, when I was in the military back in the 80s, the United States, they wanted to, what was that? They didn't think of taking the Crimea back in those days. The British actually have been thinking of taking it, believe it or not, since 1860s, from the 1860s. And Russia has fought against them. A lot of Russians have died fighting against a lot of people wanting to take the Crimea. Makes you wonder, why does everybody want to take Russia, take things from Russia? And Crimea, very much so. It's very, and the British, why do they want Crimea? It's way in the heck over there. You know, they used to have Iraq, which that's kind of weird anyway. And of course they had India, and you know, they had their British Empire, but it's not the British Empire anymore. Why do they want Crimea now? That doesn't make any sense to me. So they want to choke the life out of that, and obviously, and turn it into a base. Obviously, they want to control Russia. They can control Russia from the Crimea, but it doesn't seem like it's very. Anyway, but those areas are much bigger than you think. You see them on the map, you say, "Oh, look at this! It's only about 1 inch long, or something like that. They should be able to get that, no problem." But you know, in reality, like Ukraine is a huge, huge country, and it's not like the United States, but it's big. It's, what is it? That it would be by far the biggest country in Europe, bigger than Spain and all that. So it's not as easy as you think. Anyway, He said, choke the life out of Crimea and make it uninhabitable. So I guess that means, hey, we can drop nuclear bombs on the Crimea. There's no problem there. And that way we can put the military on the bases on the coast, but the rest of the peninsula up in the northern parts, that'll be uninhabitable. Just make 3 or 4 nuclear bombs, no problem. No problem. No problem. Russia can't enter through those areas anymore. They have to go by sea and we'll shoot them down. We're the British, by the way. We rule the waves. Okay. Russia and Belarus, talk about nuclear bombs here, or nuclear. Belarus and Russia have developed their 5-year plan to mitigate the economic consequences of the Chernobyl affected regions. And a lot of you that are out there, you don't know this because, you know, if you were around back in the days, what was it, 86 or something with Chernobyl? And when that, 86? No, it must have been later than that. But anyway, Chernobyl is on the border of Belarus. You know, from even within the border, you can look over and you can see Chernobyl. You know, you don't even have to be right on the border. You can see it from a distance because it's right on the border there, apparently. You know, and all that radiation and the worst part of all that, it affected Belarus, not Ukraine. So it affected Belarus. Belarus was more affected by that accident than Ukraine was. But yet the West sent tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine, I'll tell you what, they're the masterminds of collecting billions, like Zelensky. It's absolutely incredible. It makes you really wonder. Maybe I should get a Ukraine flag or something, and you know, maybe I can get rich that way. But anyway, somehow you can. It's like a magnet in the bottom of a big, deep, bottomless pit, and it's just sucking all the money, and it goes into there, you know. And then you got a lot of rich Ukrainians strutting around with their Rolls Royces, and that's the biggest market for Rolls Royce is Ukraine, believe it or not. I wonder why that is. How can that be? Because they're at war. No, anyway. So there's more Rolls Royces sold to Ukrainians than anywhere else, anybody else. So, but gee, the poor people, we got to send them more millions and billions, you know. And it's like somebody said something. I saw one, what was this? I think it was about a week or two ago. And somebody was saying that the Zelensky's worth 23 million. You know, what a joke. You know, Forbes already put out, I think he was back years ago, I think not long after the special military operation, maybe about 6 months or a year, that he was worth $2.5 or $2.7 billion back then. And then they put out, I mentioned this I think in the last video, then it was 5 billion, and then some people were saying he's got 10 billion by now. And of course they started shutting things off, all this information and all this talk, after it was put out that he had, you know, $2.7 billion. And yeah, I don't know. And of course, a lot of time this stuff snuck out that he bought, like he bought a casino in Cyprus, and he bought a winery with huge acreage in Italy, northern Italy, and not that long ago. And he even went to South Africa, and he bought a huge stake. He actually dominates the mining industry in South Africa because he bought the major share of that. Absolutely incredible, this guy. So look at this. Leaves, and I guess somebody's supposed to come by and get leaves and things, so they put leaves and they put out maybe other garbage or something. Looks like a plastic things and some, very strange. I guess there's wonder if I got anything to put out. So, and do you think in your right mind they're going to come back here behind these trees? I don't know. Maybe somebody that has this place here is the ones that actually goes around and picking the stuff up. Okay, so anyway, but they have this 5-year plan, and Russia is going to pay 65% of it. So, yeah, I was actually, believe it or not, but since this special military operation started, I was going to go to this forbidden zone, and you can go on there. You're not allowed to stay the night anywhere there, but you can enter this area where they had this, you know, in Belarus. There's also one in Ukraine. Ukraine, they have the they have it's a big trick there, you know, maybe also to get a lot of money and stuff. So they have like a doll. They have a doll sitting there to make sure, you know, so you see this doll and child's doll or something like that. They don't do that in Belarus, apparently. So, you know, but, you know, you can go and there's like, I think, huge, I don't know how many villages. I might get it mixed up with how many was wiped out in World War II mostly by the Ukrainian Nazis. You know, they wiped out 200 villages. You know, the Germans in charge and the Ukrainians doing all the killing. Mostly the Ukrainians, but some, I guess, from the Baltic states. Strange, they're allies even now, to this very day, the same people. Wow. But anyway, they did a lot of killing in Belarus and wiped out 200 villages, and I can't even remember, was it 120 villages that was destroyed by Chernobyl? I'm not even sure. I'd have to look that up. I think it's in Wikipedia. You guys can look it up maybe yourself. You'd have to look at maybe various sites. One's talking about the little Buick. Okay, Friedrich Merz, he put out a few days ago that Germany is going to suffer pretty bad. It's not our, just the world economic situation is just so bad. We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't import a whole bunch of migrants and pay them a whole, but you know, and put them up in luxury hotels. You know, you have to pay more money so that we can pay the hotels to put these people in. I mean, gosh, and Ukraine, somehow we have to pay all this money. We have to send all these weapons. We have to make all this stuff. We have to send billions to Ukraine. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, it's not our fault. Oh, gee, you know. Anyway, yeah, he didn't mention it was the government's fault. Nevertheless, Merz, he's not only raising the taxes based on those past mistakes, but he's also going for more billions for Ukraine as well, and the massive expansion of the German military. Because as you all know, Russia wants to come and attack Germany. You know, like everybody said, and these drones, all of these drones, you know, there was some drone flew over Germany the other day. That was a Russian drone. We know it was, just trust us. And there was two over Denmark, over the airports, and just days after that, there's like 30, 40, and 50 drones all over all of these countries. Oh, but it's Russia doing that. You know, these are private people flying their drones, and of course they have to put out that Russia is doing it so that they can get everybody to go along with these austerity measures. I mean, this is very obvious. I think there's even been economists putting this out. So you have to get this threat, and I think was it Goebbels or was it Goering or something? I think it was Goering, not Goebbels. Goebbels, you know, was a propaganda minister, but Goering, he was the Field Marshal Goering of the Air Force. But he's the one, I think, that put out, all you have to do is make people scared or make them think that they're under threat, and they will do anything that you want them to do. So I think basically that's what that's all about. So the Russians are coming. Oh, we got to build up a big military, and during that time, us politicians are going to steal. I mean, we're going to trim off. I mean, we're going to get a whole bunch of money. I mean, somehow it's going to be good. I mean, it'll be good for everybody somehow, except for you, of course, that are going to have to pay higher taxes and have to make do with less benefits and less money, and oh God. But anyway, us politicians are going to be suffering too. You know, oh God. I don't know. I wanted to get 2 new cars next year, and I can still get 2 new cars next year because I'm a politician, and I might have to get 3 new cars next year. You know, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, money is the root of all evil, and we're going to have to get more money as politicians. So that's just a terrible thing. Oh God, I don't know. So you don't have to suffer. You don't have to go put up with that evil. We will take the money from you because money is the root of all evil. That's why us great politicians in the EU are so fantastic. So, and you can take that to the bank, but you won't have any money to take to the bank because we're taking it from you. We can take it to the bank. Gosh, bunch of crazy idiots. Anyway, so Heating gas is now 75% more in Germany than it was back in 2021. So those cold showers, stick it to Putin, stick it. We're gonna stick it to Putin by taking cold showers. Damn that Putin, we're gonna make him pay. We're gonna take cold showers. Well, not the politicians, of course, but you will have to take the cold showers because we're gonna have to stick it to Putin. Oh no, some kids are coming. I gotta quiet down here a little bit. Calm down, dude. Okay. But for some reason, it's Russia's fault. It's always Russia's fault. You lose your car keys, anything, it's Russia. Trump thinks he is stopping another war in the Middle East. He's got a little bit of a civil war going on his own in against, like in Portland and Chicago and some of those places like that with ICE. And it's, I'm not like against Trump for the most part. I tell you what, I don't know if there's any other way to ameliorate what, but this has all been brewing in the United States for a long time, and it's like these, it's leftist people and their leftist ideology has been, I guess, what's the word, spoiled? I guess they're spoiled by doing anything they want to do, Hey, if you want to declare yourself a fox or a sheep, if you want to, I don't know, there's some farmers I've heard of, they identified with being a sheep. Maybe that's why they mate with sheep sometimes. But I don't think they have any kids. That's what they call it. No, that would be if they went kids. That's with a goat, isn't it? Isn't a baby goat called a kid? So I guess they have kids like everybody else, I don't know. You identify. So that's all you need to do. Who was it that rapist or something? And it's actually an honest to God thing. Some guy, a rapist, he identified with being a woman, so they imprisoned him in a woman's prison. Boy, that was a smart move, wasn't it? And then I guess there's this other thing, a guy that's a mental case. And I saw this. This is absolutely incredible. I was going to report, more on this. I would write the facts down. He didn't write the facts down, but it just comes up right now. And there was this guy. I don't even want, if you say his skin color or something like that. The guy had dreadlocks in any case. And I'm not seriously not racist at all, but I don't understand what the heck is going on. It's like looked like that guy that stabbed that Ukrainian woman in that bus. Looked very similar, same kind of hairstyle and everything. But anyway, this guy was a crazy guy. And I think did he rape a boy or something like that? Anyway, they're letting the guy back out of the prison. I think he raped and killed this guy's his son, this one man's son, and they're going to let him out of prison, let him out on the street. And this guy that was the father, he's got long hair like me, I guess. He said he's going to kill this guy. So you know what's going to happen, don't you? The crazy guy that raped and killed the little boy, he'll be running around out on the streets, even during the Trump times. But yet this guy, he's going to be in prison, that he never killed anybody, at least not yet. So he'll go to prison, and the guy that actually did kill somebody is going to be running around on the streets, killed and raped a boy, or whatever. Incredible. And he's crazy. He's certified insane. Oh, welcome to the USA, I guess. Boy, incredible. Okay. But anyway, Trump's got another war. I think he's going to take his pick. Do you want a war against Venezuela, or do you want to join in the war against Iran with Israel? So which war? Pick a war, any war, a war. So pick a war, Donald. You got your own one going on there, while you're getting the Peace Prize, I suppose. Okay. There's a little bit of also not a very nice slaughter going to go on apparently in Canada. Canada is set to, how much time? Canada is set to euthanize 30 whales in captivity. This aquarium marine land has no funds to care for them. 30 whales. China said they will take them, but Canada's Minister of Fisheries said no. They're better off dead, I guess. Why does this say 8 minutes? Okay, part of the reason that Germans are taking to the streets at the moment, it's not, they had lots of them, hundreds of thousands protesting for Palestine not too long ago. But other large protests are also in Berlin. They're against the weapons to Ukraine. Yeah, so I don't know. Merz is kind of crazy. These people, you never know what their agenda is, but their agenda does not align with what the people want. That's incredible. When there's supposed to be democracy and, the will of the people and all that. That's what's going on in the world today. It's very strange. They say that there's no democracy over here in Belarus and Russia and China, and yet the people like what the governments here do 99% of the time, unlike other places. Or maybe you can rent a mob, like you can get some people, pay them some big money, have training centers like they did have them in Belarus here. The United States did run through a lot of these agencies like Radio Free Europe and all that sort of thing. Train them how to protest, make signs, how to organize all this stuff, and then go onto the streets. But anyway, you all know the deal. Okay, I already mentioned about Greta. Make her crawl and kiss the Israeli flag. Jeez. Well, there was some good news this past days. The Czech election from the Czech Republic, it's over. Apparently they now have a new president who actually cares more about the country and the people than they do about the EU and being subservient to the United States and the deep state, the globalist corruption things, or Ukraine. Apparently he's going to either limit or stop the sending, billions to Ukraine from the Czech Republic. That's incredible. You never thought you'd see the day. Anyway, sending their people's money to Ukraine. Anyway, I don't. Anyway, so Moldova. I talked about Moldova and Romania and Serbia, Georgia, Hungary, Slovakia. Anyway. It's amazing they didn't get much of anywhere with Belarus at this time. Since I've been here, it's pretty peaceful. They tried to kill him. I guess it was they wanted to kill Lukashenko and his entire family in 2022, and I was here. But that the Russians caught that much early on. So, and they arrested all those people that were trying to do that. So, but other than that, there really hasn't been that much unrest of the West trying to overthrow the government here, at least not that I have known. Maybe it's something and the government has never put it out, but they've tried some overthrows of the government. But anyhow, it's calm, at least lately. That's about all I have for today, everybody. And somehow my timer says 11 minutes. It must have stopped and started again. Maybe I have to do part of this video again because maybe it was off, not recording at that time. I don't know. Crazy stuff since I got this new selfie stick. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.